In both world wars, Canadians were asked to help the effort by buying victory bonds, essentially a loan to the government. This week, the NDP brought back the idea to fight a different kind of battle, the trade war triggered by U.S. President Donald Trump's punishing tariffs. Here was the pitch during the Second World War.
Don't spend it, lend it, help to end it. Come on, buy bonds.
Joining us to talk about how victory bonds might work today is Armine Yalnizyan. She's an economist and the Atkinson Fellow on the Future of Workers. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon, Asha.
Let's start with why we might need victory bonds in the first place. You believe a recession is inevitable?
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's a question of if. It's a question of when, how deep, how long. And all of the parties that want your vote are talking about tax cuts. There's one party that just last week talked about actually raising some money. So we're not going to cut our way with taxes and cutting rules towards some kind of strength in the wake of disentangling our economy from the United States. We're going to need some cash to deal with the type of rebuilding that will be required. I have been watching what has happened in the past and what we can learn from the past for decades now as an economist. And the victory bonds idea just kind of leaps out as a winning strategy, which raised as much in taxes, in revenue as taxes did during the war. Even when taxes were increased quite dramatically, people wanted to give money to help win the fight. And that's why they were called victory bonds. And I think there's an enormous spirit sweeping the nation again. And yes, we have huge levels of household indebtedness, but we're also saving at rates we haven't seen since 1996. And I think people would be willing to actually put money aside. It's not just a strict loan, it's a guaranteed return, tax-free, to the people that put aside their money for a few years. And it's what we're going to need if we're not willing to raise taxes.
And you talk about rebuild. People want to know, okay, how long could this last? How bad could it be? And is this the way to minimize that kind of damage?
No, the first way to minimize the damage is that we are not recession ready, and our unemployment insurance system that was designed to be an automatic stabilizer to shorten the duration of unemployment and reduce its depth by not letting the unemployed be unemployed for too long or lose too much purchasing power, which just cascades through the system. So we need to actually ready our EI system. At last count, we had 1.5 million people that were unemployed, and only 35% of them got jobless benefits. That's a guarantee to tank your economy for longer and deeper than it needs to go. So that's job one, fix EI. But job two is, if we're going to build stuff to actually disentangle ourselves from our neighbors to the south, we're going to need to actually not lose the profitable manufacturing facilities we've got that might shutter to move down south to avoid taxes, or might just be idle because they don't know what to do. We need to keep those facilities working and working for Canadians, and doing things like making the fleets that we need for public transit. There's all sorts of things that we could be buying for the public services we need in healthcare and education. So there's so much we could be doing, but we don't have the money to do it, and everybody's promising tax cuts. So how's that going to square?
Yeah. I want to talk about the column that you wrote, right, about the victory bonds and the NDP that actually included them in the platform, saying victory bonds could be a tool to fight a recession. I know you've given, some context there, but can you describe a bit more about how it could work exactly?
Well, every time we have floated bonds that have a public purpose and a very limited return, it's not zero. You get a return, but it's not huge. But you're giving your money to a government for a purpose. We did it with green bonds in Ontario. Every single issue has been oversubscribed. People want to put their money to work in the things that we need done. And if you give them a bit of a return, it's bound to be oversubscribed. But the lesson from history in the Second World War is we did better with victory bonds than the Americans even did. And part of it was the super saturation of the marketing of what we are going to do with that money and how you can participate. They even had like victory stamps that kids could buy, 25 cents each. You buy a booklet of 4 and you get a $5 victory bond. And 25 cents back in the day was $5. So, oddly, the Liberal government has embraced the idea of victory donations for their own fundraising. In denominations as little as $10 if you go to their website. But this is something that Canadians are willing to do to win the fight against becoming the 51st state. It's a real elbows up moment that should be harnessed by whoever wins the next beauty contest on April the 28th to do what we need to do together.
Beauty contest. That is such an interesting description. I want to talk about that, though. The spirit that is there, we feel it everywhere. How does it tap into the patriotism for Canadians?
Look, people are willing to buy Canadian. I just read today that people are going into the stores, and when they realize it's an American product, they're not just turning one can upside down or one package upside down. They're turning all of them upside down in the front row, so you know that this is American. Don't buy it. That's the sort of spirit you can tap into. And if your population is saving at a rate not seen since 1996, give us a way to do more than just buy Canadian. Help us save Canadian and save Canada in the process.
This is such a unique perspective. I appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you, Asha.
Armine Yalnizyan is an economist and the Atkinson Fellow on the Future of Workers. Elbows up. I saw that.